All right, what is going on, guys? Today we are back with another story time. I know I've probably been dropping a lot of these on you guys recently, but there's something that it's easy for me to make, and I could clickbait it pretty easily. So that means views, and I'm like the biggest, absolute just whore for views on the internet. So we're back with another story time. So with that being said, this one is going to be about something a little different. This is actually going to be about something that happened in my neighborhood, more to my parents. I was kind of young, but it happened back at where I used to live, like a long time ago, and it happened to them. It was pretty crazy, and I thought that I would go ahead and share it with you guys on the internet because it's kind of a funny one. So pretty much, just for a little bit of background context, I guess, I used to live out in like the absolute middle of nowhere. Like I was born and lived the first 4, 5, 6 years of my life, like way out in like the middle of kind of mountains. It wasn't really mountains, but it was like, it was definitely a more rural area, right? It was like 30 minutes to the closest store and, stuff like that. So it was definitely out there. And we lived on like, a good bit of land, but it's not like I'm rich or anything. So we lived in kind of a shitty house out there. But it was what it was. And it was really cool, especially like, my dad used to ride dirt bikes and shit out there because that's what everybody did out there since there wasn't really a whole lot else to do. And it was interesting. It was definitely interesting. There's probably a bunch of different stories I could tell about this place that I've either heard from my parents or that I was there and remember, the year or two I lived there with a memory. But, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into what this actual story was. So pretty much living out in the middle of nowhere, you don't really know who is going to show up like at your house. Who's going to show up? What kind of person is going to show up? Why are they showing up? Like when you live that far out somewhere, sure, maybe you'll get a neighbor, but like, your neighbors and like, stuff like that. Like maybe you'll get a neighbor or something like that, or you'll get like somebody from the city or like a ranger, like police officer, ranger type thing, like coming out saying like, hey, are you guys all good out here? Or, like you'll get firefighters or saying like, hey, there's a fire in your, just shit like that, right? I've lived in California my whole life, so the fire one is probably the most likely to happen. But it was just stuff like that. And, typically that happens earlier in the day at normal times because they're on the clock for a job, so they're probably not going to be showing up at your house at like 2 a.m. unless something really bad is going on. So just like nobody's really coming out here, and nobody comes out here to the point that the place we lived in used to be like a marijuana like farm way before it was legal. Like that's how out there this place was. There was still like shit growing in the back and whatever. But so pretty much that was that. And it was all right. Nothing bad happened. Obviously, you have like the wild animals and, you hear some shit in the night. It's kind of creepy. I had like cats living under my room and shit. It was definitely not like the ideal living, the ideal place to live, especially for a little kid. It was all right. But just one night in particular, so my dad had a Suzuki Samurai, which is a car. It's kind of like a Jeep, if you don't know what it is. That kind of, I guess, helps you get the idea. And so I think he left it unlocked or something because we lived like it was in a gate and shit. Like, it wasn't really a huge concern for shit to get stolen because if something did get stolen, like who would have really taken it outside of your neighbors? Like nobody's going to go out there and do that unless it's like a serial killer or your neighbor, or maybe your neighbor is a serial killer when you live out there. It's kind of hard to tell, but so pretty much we're out there. It's nighttime. And my dad keeps like a police flashlight in this car, like, you know, one of the like really big and pretty powerful ones. So it's the nighttime. Everyone's asleep. And we get a knock on the door. And now my room was right next to the front door. So little 4-year-old me is woken up. And I'm like, oh, well, this is interesting. You know, who's at the door? Like, it's night. And I was 4, so I'd probably gone to bed at like 6 p.m. or something. And I was like, oh, you know, I've been asleep for quite a long time. You know, this is weird. Why am I getting woken up in the middle of the night? This isn't something that normally happens, especially out here. But, so yeah, I'm woken up and, I walk out of my room door because why wouldn't you? And so my parents are already out there and we lived with my grandma at the time too. So she was like up, it was kind of like the whole house was woken up by somebody knocking on the door. Like, I don't know what time this was. 1, because it was so long ago. 2, because I was a little kid and didn't really have like the full on concept of time. But, yeah, so that was going on. And pretty much everybody's like, you know, preparing for the worst because here's this random knock on the door in the middle of the night. We live out in the middle of nowhere. Like, you know, we're pretty fucked. So, my mom, she grabs like, we had like this little like wooden buffalo thing. I think we still have it. It's like, it's heavy as fuck, but you know, she picks it up. She's like armed, ready to go. My dad has like a baseball bat or whatever. And so it's like, you know, we'll probably be okay, but it's still sketchy. So eventually we open the door and we're greeted to this dude and he's like out there shining the flashlight. He stole the flashlight from my dad's car. He's out there with the flashlight. He's an old man, like we're talking an old ass man in diapers, naked outside of the diaper, obviously, but just out there with the flashlight at our front door. And so it's like, what the fuck? Like, you know, like everybody's like, what the fuck is going on? Obviously, I didn't really know how to perceive it because I was pretty young. But from what I've heard, it was a weird ass experience. And the little bits that I do remember from it, looking back on it now, yes, it was definitely a weird ass experience. However, this story does have a little bit more of an innocent end to it. It's not malicious. The person, I guess, was in like treatment for something, for some form of mental illness, which I feel like could be assumed pretty easily. And I guess they had gotten out and people were looking for them. And so, well, we had called the police and said, hey, like there's some old man in diapers at our door. Yeah, so that eventually got cleared up. He ended up going back to wherever he came from, ended up safe. And yeah, that was pretty much that story. It was definitely interesting and, you know, not really something that you want to deal with, especially when you live out in the middle of nowhere. It's, you know, quite an interesting predicament. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you hit that like button as well as that subscribe button. Leave any suggestions for videos down in the comments below. I will be taking a look at them, mostly because I'm running out of ideas. So yeah, make sure you leave down any suggestions you have down in the comments below. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. I will see you guys later. Goodbye.